Yo, what's up guys? Alf here, and today I'm going to be doing a full in-depth deck breakdown of a deck that I've recently used to hit rank 1 with on the arena ladder. As you can see from the screenshot here, I'm currently 27-5 with this list, so it's been performing really well for me. And now before I get into it, there's going to be a link down in the description that'll have the deck list if you want to try it out for yourself. And I'm also in the process of writing a full text article about this list for MTGAzone Premium that'll have more details, a full sideboard guide, how I change the deck for best of one, and some tips and tricks to help you play the deck as well. So as soon as that's finished and up, I'll link that down in the description as well. And I also just want to quickly say sorry for the delay in getting videos out the past couple of weeks. As usual, I have been working on a ton of decks, mainly in Alchemy, but I just wasn't able to get any of those lists to a point I was really happy with. If the Alchemy players out there are interested, I can cover those lists in an Under the Meta video in future, but for now my focus is definitely going to be shifting to Historic, because later this month we have the Mythic qualifier on Arena in Historic, which I'm really excited about. Historic is definitely my favourite format, so my focus is definitely going to be on Historic for the next month, covering a bunch of new decks like this one, and also returning to older decks as well to see how we can tune them to the current metagame. So definitely expect a lot more Historic videos in prep for the qualifier that's coming up. And since the full spoilers also dropped for Ixalan, I'm also going to be doing set reviews for Historic, Explorer and Alchemy over the next week, so definitely expect those videos to come in the next few days as well. But anyway, with that all out of the way, this is my Esper Connive list in Historic, and this deck is kind of somewhere between an aggro and a mid-range deck that has a lot of disruptive elements and a lot of hate cards that enable you to fight against the more degenerate combo decks in the format right now as well. So in terms of the proactive strategy in this deck, the main engine cards are Diviner of Fates and Raffine's Scheming Seer, both of which provide a lot of card advantage and card selection as well. So Diviner of Fates, really nice because it loots you immediately, and then if the opponent doesn't kill it in response to the trigger, you also get to Seek as well. So it provides card advantage on the end of the battlefield trigger, and then we also have another bunch of cards in the deck that enable you to trigger Diviner of Fates once it's in play to provide even more card advantage. Stuff like Sigardian Evangel, Rona, Raffine, and the Channel Lands as well. So this is really nice because it does provide you card selection to dig to whatever you need, and it also enables you to grind against decks like mid-range. You know, mid-range strategies are typically more difficult for these aggro mid-range decks because they typically go a little bit bigger than you and are better at grinding into the longer games, and cards like Diviner of Fates really enable you to keep up in terms of card advantage in those grinder matchups, whilst also just being really good in other matchups as well, helping you dig towards your hate pieces against combo, helping you dig towards your removal against the aggro decks as well. So Diviner of Fates, absolute all-star. It's also now been unnerved since rotation as well, and a 2-3 moving up to a 3-4 when you connive a non-land is so big because there's a lot of 3 damage burn spells seeing play right now. I've seen a lot of Wizard's Lightning, Lightning Helix, and Strangle right now, and making Diviner of Fates into a 3-4 is a really good way to play around that. And then Raffine, kind of a similar effect. It doesn't produce card advantage unless you have a Diviner in play, but it provides a ton of card selection and also enables the aggro side of the deck in a lot of ways as well, because you can use it to buff your creatures. Having flying is really good at breaking board stalls and attacking in for damage in the air. Having flying is also really good at blocking against decks like Wizards as well. Again, 4 toughness, super relevant when there's a lot of 3 damage burn spells seeing play right now. And the Ward one is obviously really good against the interactive decks as well. So these 2 cards are really good at just enabling the proactive game plan of the deck. Really good at looting away cards you don't need, finding cards you do need, and providing card advantage and helping you go over the top of the opponent. Then the other cards in the deck, we'll start off by looking at the 1-drop slot with Esper Sentinel, which is a card that basically became unplayable with Bowmasters, but now Bowmaster's been nerfed, we can start playing Sentinel again, and this card is really good in the current metagame. Obviously there are some very creature-heavy decks that this isn't great against, like Yawgmoth and Samwise, but outside of that, Esper Sentinel is really good against the majority of the format, particularly good against the mid-range decks, you know, the more interactive decks like, you know, Rakdos mid-range and Blue-White Control and stuff like that, but also still very good against decks like Wizards as well. So Esper Sentinel, just really good card on its own, and this is also a pretty good Esper Sentinel deck as well because we can buff it off Raffine, you know, going Sentinel on turn 1 into a 2-drop into Raffine, attack with the 2 creatures and buff Sentinel into a 3-3 is really solid as well. So Sentinel really good against a lot of the decks right now, and because we can buff it with Raffine, very good Sentinel deck. Then we've got Giver of Runes, which doubles up as a way to protect our creatures and also force through damage as well, which is really big. So we have a lot of creatures in the deck that we want to be able to protect. Mainly in this deck are the 3-drops, Rona and Esper Sentinel in the main deck, but we also have a number of sideboard cards that are really effective. Stuff like Thalia, Lavinia and Archon are also very big to protect in those matchups as well. So Giver, really solid at protecting our hate cards and also our proactive cards like Diviner and Raffine as well. And then the ability for us to be able to force through damage with this as well is also really big, because another big weakness of these decks that sort of sit between aggro and mid-range is that they can struggle against other decks that are good at committing to the board, right? There are a number of decks that are good at swarming the board right now. Devotion, for example, can get very big creatures in the way, which, you know, can stop you attacking, and Giver of Runes Vines being able to give your creatures protection from green is a really good way of attacking through. Similarly, Yawgmoth and Samwise can also commit to the board early to prevent you from attacking. So Giver being able to not only protect your creatures, but also give your creatures protection to be able to attack through for damage and force through lethal, force through pressure on the board is really, really big as well. So Giver, fantastic card in this deck for sure, and also pads out the 1-drop slot very nicely. Then we got 4 copies of Fatal Push, which is obviously just a generically good piece of removal. I absolutely feel like you have to be running at least 4 pieces of removal in the main deck right now to stand a chance against Wizards. Wizards is one of the most popular decks right now, and Fatal Push is obviously one of the best tools to fight that matchup. We also have some extra removal in the sideboard as well to improve that matchup even further, but Push is just generally useful, right? You know, there's obviously the creature-heavy combo decks like Yawgmoth and Samwise. This is good at just slowing down, hitting their mana dorks. Even against Devotion, you can still hit their mana dorks there as well, so Fatal Push, very, very good against a number of decks right now. We don't trigger Revolt that easily, but it is very useful having Revolt, you know, if we trade off with creatures in combat to be able to kill bigger creatures like Shieldred and Yawgmoth as well. So Fatal Push, really, really important part of the deck, especially while Wizards is a big part of the format. Then we've got 4 copies of Sigardian Evangel, which is a really, really sick card in this deck as well. So this is, you know, first of all, very good at forcing through damage. As I mentioned with Giver of Runes, these sorts of aggro mid-range decks can get stalled on the board, and having Sigardian Evangel, particularly if you have access to at least 4 mana to get multiples of these down, is really good at just tapping down your opponent's blockers to allow you to get in for damage. It's also just very good at enabling you to commit to the board, producing card advantage against grindy decks as well, and it also pairs really, really well with Diviner of Fates as well, because, you know, once you play Sigardian Evangel and you conjure that last copy into your hand that you can't cast, you'll discard it during the end step, which triggers Diviner of Fates, enabling you to get another card. So being able to go Diviner of Fates on turn 3, into 2 Evangels on turn 4, tap down your opponent's stuff to enable you to attack in, and then when you discard it, you also get another card off Diviner is really nice. Similarly, it also works really well with Rafine, because if we go Rafine on turn 3, then on turn 4 we can play 2 Evangels, and then we can discard the last copy that we've got conjured into our hand off Rafine for additional value as well. And then similarly, it also kind of works well with Rona as well, right? We play 2 Evangels on turn 4, and then we can activate Rona to draw and then discard the Evangel before we discard it to its own ability. So Evangel, because of the looting effects that we have in the deck, we can turn a lot of card neutral effects into card advantage, whilst also just committing to the board, tapping down stuff to allow us to attack him for damage. And it's also just the best card later in the game, right? Once we have access to 6 or 8 mana, being able to get 3 or 4 of these 3/1s into play while tapping down the opponent's stuff, it's just really good at forcing through lethal damage. So Sigardian Evangel, absolute all-star in this deck for sure. And we've got 2 copies of Rona Herald of Invasion, which is really nice in conjunction with Diviner of Fates. You know, the looting ability on this is really solid, because we can go Rona on turn 2, Diviner of Fates on turn 3, and then leave Rona untapped, and then we can just loot during the opponent's turn to trigger Diviner on the opponent's turn as well to get an additional trigger. So Diviner plus Rona is a really sick card advantage engine as well. Also just generically good with stuff like Evangel, and just good at looting through whatever we need as well. And then the transform ability on this comes up more often than you might think, right? Once the game goes long and you do have access to more mana, as I mentioned, sometimes board stalls are an issue, and Rona is another way that we can just force through damage if the opponent does get blockers down, because a 5/5 trample isn't easy for any commonly played creature to block right now, apart from stuff like Cavalier of Thorns. So being able to transform this later in the game to force through additional damage is just really good at fighting through those board stalls, which is really nice. Only running a couple of copies, first of all because it's legendary, but also just because I don't think you really want a ton of this effect. Drawing the first copy is always nice, but you never really want to be drawing this in multiples, so 2 copies has felt like a good amount to me. Then we've also got 2 copies of Pippin, Guard of the Citadel, so this kind of fills another similar role to Giver of Runes, but there are definitely some big upsides to this over Giver of Runes. So first of all, it has Vigilance and Ward 1, which is really big. Ward 1 means it has some inherent protection itself, which is really big, but Vigilance is specifically really nice with Rafine, because if we go Pippin on turn 2, into Rafine on turn 3, we can attack him with the Pippin, which means that not only do we get the loot ability off Rafine, we can also buff it into a 3/3, which means it's back to block as well. And then because it has Vigilance, it means we can attack and still hold up the protection ability to protect the Rafine at, you know, that turn as well. So Pippin, really nice in a similar way to Giver of Runes as well. And the other nice thing about it is that the protection from a card type is generally a lot better than Giver of Runes at forcing through damage, because Giver is really good against stuff like Devotion, because all of their creatures are going to be green. But if you're against a multicolored creature deck like Yawgmoth or Samwise, sometimes Giver isn't that effective at forcing through damage if the opponent has, you know, different creatures of different colors. And being able to use Pippin to give one of your creatures protection from creatures is really, really solid, right? You can attack him with a bunch of creatures, target something with Rafine to buff it a bunch, and then before the opponent goes to blocks, you can then give that creature protection from creatures to just fall through lethal damage. So again, it's another way that we can protect our powerful hate cards or engine pieces, and also just force through additional damage against opposing creatures as well. Then we got 4 copies of Juggernaut Peddler, and this card is just the MVP of this deck. I don't think this deck would be playable without Juggernaut Peddler, because hand disruption is just so good against so much of the format right now, and this is a really key part at enabling you to fight against the more degenerate decks in the format. So the format right now, there's a ton of combo decks, stuff like Samwise, Kethis, Yawgmoth, and being able to disrupt those combos with hand disruption like Peddler is so important. Then the other main decks in the format, you've got Devotion, which is a ramp deck, and again, hand disruption is very, very solid against ramp as well, being able to strip away their top end cards to ensure that they run out of gas. And then the main aggro deck in the format right now is Wizards, which is, aggro is typically the archetype that Peddler is the least good against, but since Wizards is basically a synergy based aggro deck that needs a good spread of creatures and non-creature spells to trigger those creatures, Peddler is really good against Wizards as well, because if you can get this down, if they have one creature and a bunch of non-creatures, you can get rid of the creature. If they have a bunch of creatures and they have like an expressive iteration, you can use Peddler to strip away the iteration. So Peddler is just super well positioned right now. There's very few top tier decks that Peddler isn't good against, and as I mentioned, this is the main way that we have of stopping the more degenerate decks of getting off their combos, which is super important right now. And on a similar note, Anointed Peacekeeper does a very similar thing, and I think this is another card that is incredibly well positioned right now and has been a real MVP in this deck. So again, as I was mentioning, all the decks that Peddler is good against, Peacekeeper is also good against as well, provides additional hand disruption. But the really nice thing about Peacekeeper, that it doesn't just provide hand disruption, but it also disrupts activated abilities, which are incredibly prominent right now. As we've seen, Pithing Needle is an incredibly good sideboard card right now because it's very good against Yawgmoth, Kethis, Samwise. There's a ton of other activated abilities like the One Ring, Goblin Bombardment. There's Planeswalkers running about right now, and Peacekeeper is really good against all of those as well. So not only does it provide hand disruption, but it's also very good at just shutting off stuff like Yawgmoth to stop the opponent comboing off. Right, they have to pay 2 every single time. If they've got the One Ring, they have to pay 3 to activate that. If they've got Goblin Bombardment, they have to pay 2 to activate that. So Peacekeeper, really, really well positioned and doubles up as kind of like a main deck Pithing Needle effect that also provides additional hand disruption, and is also just a decently sized creature as well. Again, Vigilance, very, very nice with Rafine as well. So Peacekeeper, incredibly well positioned card right now, and I don't really think this deck would be playable without this hand disruption being able to stop the more degenerate strategies in the format right now. And in terms of the mana base, we've got 24 lands here, which has felt like a good amount. I definitely wouldn't go any lower, though, because you really, really need to hit your 3rd land drop, right? The way we mitigate Flood in this deck is off the looting effects like Diviner Fates and Rafine, so we really want to guarantee hitting our 3rd land, so I wouldn't go any lower than 24, but because we have so much good card selection off these cards, I don't think you really need to go any higher than 24 either. In terms of the lands themselves, there is a lot of pressure on the mana base in this deck, because we need white and black on turn 1. We also need all 3 colours on turn 3 for Diviner and Rafine. We need all 3 colours on turn 2 as well for stuff like Rona and Pippin, so we do need to run a lot of dual lands in order to enable that. However, I also really wanted to be running the channel lands in Iganjo, Otawara and Takanuma here. First of all, because we do have a decent number of legendary cards in the deck which discount them, but mainly because of Diviner Fates, because the nice thing about running these channel lands in the deck is that if we discard a land to the Diviner Fates trigger, we have the potential of turning one of our lands essentially into a spell, because we can potentially hit these channel lands. And additionally, on top of that, they also trigger Diviner Fates when we use them as well, right? We can use Iganjo, Otawara or Takanuma during the opponent's turn, and then Diviner Fates triggers to give us another land as well. So I really wanted these to enable Diviner Fates to turn lands into spells some of the time, which is really nice. However, because I'm running these, which are essentially monocolored lands, I do feel like you need to be running a couple mana confluence in the mana base just to, have enough of each color, whilst running a lot of monocolored lands as well. Initially I didn't run Confluence, I was running additional fast lands as well, and I just found myself having to mulligan hands which were good, but I didn't have all 3 colours of mana, which is kind of a nightmare. So even though we are running 2 Confluence and 12 shock lands, which is quite a painful mana base, I feel like it's worth it in order to enable the channel lands, which have been very, very good when I've been able to use them, particularly because we can discount them, at least a couple of times in a lot of scenarios as well. So that's the main deck overall. As I mentioned, I think the disruptive tools that this deck has access to just line up really well against a lot of the more degenerate decks in the format, like the combo decks and Devotion. And then the protective tools and the card advantage engines like Giver, Pippin, Diviner and Rafine massively improve the matchup against the grinded decks like Midrange, and also the interactive decks like Wizards as well, that a similar deck like Humans would really struggle against. So next up we'll have a look at the sideboard, starting off here with 4 copies of Fragment Reality. So this is basically just here as additional cheap removal. Now, this is a swap that I've made quite recently, and as you'll see in the gameplay that I got coming up, I was originally running 4 copies of Cut Down in this slot, and the main reason I was interested in Cut Down and just 1 mana removal in general is because of the Wizards matchup. So Wizards is an incredibly popular deck right now, and kind of unsurprisingly, right, it's one of the best decks in the format, and it won the last Arena Championship. So because of that, I've really wanted to have 8 1 mana removal spells post sideboard because it's just the best way of slowing them down. And I think Cut Down specifically is just the best option against Wizards in addition to Fatal Push because it can cleanly kill all their creatures. Fragment Reality is slightly worse against Wizards because if you have to use it against their 2 mana creatures, they get a 1-drop out of the deal, which really isn't ideal. But the main reason I made this swap is because I feel like it really improves a lot of other matchups, specifically Mono Green Devotion. This is really good at stopping not only their mana dorks, but also Utopia Sprawl, which is really good at slowing them down. And it's also just good at dealing with their bigger creatures that are coming up the board as well, like Old-Growth Troll and Polukronos and Cavalier of Thorns as well, which is pretty nice. Additionally, even though we've got Fatal Push, as I mentioned, the main deck isn't particularly good at triggering Revolt. So against decks that are running Shieldred or Yawgmoth, for example, even though Fragment Reality does give them another creature, I think, being able to cleanly deal with it immediately is a really big deal. As I mentioned, the opponent can just not block your creatures to trigger Revolt and Fatal Push, and both Yawgmoth and Shieldred are a big issue for this deck because we are drawing a lot of cards off Diviner and Rafine, so having Fragment Reality be a really clean way to deal with more expensive creatures is nice there as well. And then additionally, it gives us a way to deal with artifacts and enchantments against more fringe decks. Now, I don't think that's particularly relevant against the main top decks right now, but I have seen a resurgence in the Retrofitter Foundry decks recently, and there's also other decks like Cabaretti Revels Goblins as well, which, unless we have Peddler or Peacekeeper to stop the Revels, we don't have any way to stop them comboing off if they do resolve the Cabaretti Revels, so having access to Fragment Reality gives us a way to stop artifacts and enchantments against more fringe decks as well. So if you're expecting a lot of Wizards specifically and you want to hard target that, I think Cut Down is the better option, but I feel like Fragment Reality improves your matchups in other ways, whilst also still being decent against Wizards as well. Then we've got 3 copies of Pithing Needle, which is really important against a lot of the activated abilities decks. I mentioned a lot of decks that Peacekeeper's good against. Same sort of thing here with Pithing Needle, right? Very good against Kethis, very good against Yawgmoth, very good against Samwise, very good against the One Ring, Planeswalkers, Goblin Bombardment, Maze's End. There's a ton of activated abilities that are really important to hate out right now, and having access to 4 Peacekeeper, 3 Needle post sideboard really ensures that we're almost guaranteed to find it as well. And both of these require different answers as well. So against a deck like Yawgmoth, right, they need to find Haywire Might to answer the Pithing Needle, and they need to find creature removal to shut off the Peacekeeper. So we have a lot of ways to stop them comboing off, which is the name of the game against the combo decks, right? Slow them down so they can't combo off, and then beat them with our fair game plan, which is much better than their fair game plan. And we got 4 copies of Thalia, which is really, really good against the decks that are relying on non-creature spells. So, first of all, this is just the nuts against control for sure, but it's also just very good against a lot of other decks that rely on non-creature spells, like Wizards, for example, or, Auras and Phoenix. And I also like bringing in a couple copies as well against Rakdos Midrange and Devotion as well. So, very, very solid in those sorts of matchups. Then I've got 2 copies of Lavinia, which is predominantly here for the Devotion and the Kethis matchup. So, against Devotion, the main cards that we're worried about that enable the opponent to go over the top of us are Karn and Storm the Festival, and Lavinia basically just slows down the opponent's ability to cast those. The opponent needs 4 lands in play to cast Karn, they need 6 lands in play to cast Storm the Festival, which really slows down their ability to go over the top of us. In this list, we don't really care too much about their creatures because we can tap them down with Evangel, we can force through our attackers with Giver of Runes and Pippin as well. We also have Rafine to fly over the top as well, so the main things we're worried about in that matchup are Karn and Storm the Festival, and Lavinia basically just slows down their ability to cast both of those, which is really huge. And then against Kethis, this basically just counters their Mox Ambers, so it doesn't stop them comboing off completely because they can go off with Rona and Relic of Legends, but it's just another tool that slows them down. As I mentioned, the name of the game with this deck against combo is just stop them comboing off and then win with our fair game plan, and Lavinia is really, really good at slowing down Kethis to stop them comboing off in a lot of ways as well. And then similarly, Archon of Emeria also very good against Devotion and Kethis as well because, Devotion really needs to be casting multiple spells in a turn to be able to go off, as does Kethis, so very, very good hate piece in both of those matchups. And against Kethis specifically, they need to answer this to be able to combo off. But this is also really solid against a bunch of other decks as well. I really like this against Wizards because that's a deck that needs to be chaining spells together in order to do their most powerful things. Similarly, very good against Auras, very good against Phoenix, and just in general, the ability to stop the opponent playing non-basics untapped as well is really solid as well if you can get this down early. I was originally running Archon in the main deck because it is really well positioned, but it does have a little bit of dissynergy with Sigardian Evangel, which is the main reason I put it in the sideboard. But that's the deck overall. As I mentioned, I think the disruptive elements of this deck line up really well against a lot of what the top decks are doing right now. And I think, once you slow down the degenerate parts of those combo decks, your fair game plan can fairly easily beat theirs. And then with a lot of the protection and card advantage engines that this deck has access to in Giver of Runes, Pippin, Diviner, and Rafine, you also have a solid, game plan against the other side of the format, the more interactive decks like the Midrange and the control decks as well. So I've been having a ton of fun playing this deck, and I also feel like it's quite customizable, right? As the metagame shifts, I feel like there are good hate creatures in the format, especially in these colors, that enable you to adapt the deck depending on what the format is doing as well. Anyway, next up I've got some gameplay so you guys can see the deck in action. I got 5 matches that I was playing on the ladder. If you got any questions about the deck at all, definitely let me know in the comments, and I hope you enjoyed the gameplay. Big up! Okay, so we're on the play here. And yeah, this hand looks great. Right, we got Sentinel into Peddler, we got Fatal Push if we're against an aggro deck like Wizards, and as long as we can find the third land, we've then got potentially Rafine to buff the Esper Sentinel or Diviner as well. So yeah, as long as we can hit the third land drop, this hand looks solid. Okay, so Forest. Okay, Forest into Elvish Mystic, so almost certainly going to be against Devotion here, if I had to guess. Definitely going to prioritise pushing the Elvish Mystic here, and then thankfully we did draw a Giver of Runes, so that means that we can use our spare mana here as well. And then we've still got Peddler for next turn. Also got Rafine or Diviner if we just want to start applying pressure. But yeah, having the Fatal Push for that Elvish Mystic is really going to slow the opponent down, which is a really big deal here. And then Esper Sentinel is also pretty nice here, because if they have like Wolf Willow Haven or Utopia Sprawl, it forces them to tap out and not use the extra mana, or give us a card, which could be very relevant here if it helps us find the third land drop. Even if we do miss the third land drop though, Peddler is still pretty good in this spot, and even if we do find the third land, I think there's still some consideration to playing Peddler here. So yeah, opponents in kind of a conundrum here where they've either got to give us the card or miss out on 2 potential mana this turn. So they do end up not giving us the card, and we do have the third land drop. So again, I think there is potentially an argument for going for Peddler here, but I also just feel like I kind of prefer just applying pressure here, to be honest, because, we do want to close the game out. Even though we do have good disruptive tools against Devotion, the quicker we close the game out, the less opportunities that gives the opponent. Okay, sweet. That's 2 really solid draws here. So now I definitely want to keep the Evangel, and even though Divine is a really strong card, it's more of a grindy card, and I think the onus is on us to start closing the game out here. So Peddler is really good at hitting their top end stuff, right? We can easily attack down a Khan here. If they have like a Storm the Festival, we can shut that off with Peddler, and if we find the 4th land, having Evangel as a way to just tap down their creatures is really, really huge here. So opponent has Old Growth Troll into Llanowar Elves, so we could go for Peddler here, and I think I'm probably forced to be honest. Obviously going for Evangel on turn 4 when we have 4 lands is really big, but I really want a Peddler here to try and, shut off Cavalier of Thorns, which could help them stabilize quite a bit. So they have 2 Storm the Festivals and a Khan here, which is a little bit annoying, because if they find an extra land, they have, they can cast Storm the Festival next turn. It will give us a card off the Esper Sentinel. So I think what I'm going to do here, since we're basically never going to use the Giver of Runes protection from removal, I'm just going to give the Esper Sentinel protection from green, and then attack with both the Esper Sentinel and the Rafine to just keep applying more pressure here, right? If they don't find a land drop, then they're going to be in real trouble. Wow, okay, finding Fatal Push here is pretty solid, so I think I want to keep Evangel Fatal Push here, then we can take out the Llanowar Elves. So now even if the opponent does find an untapped land, they can't cast the Storm the Festival here, and then if they do spend their turn just casting a Juggernaut, we can just tap the Old Growth Troll down. We can still give our creatures protection from green with the Giver to force through even more damage. Oh wow, okay, Peacekeeper is a very solid draw here as well, because now we can Peacekeeper, name Storm the Festival, and even if they find another land drop here, that shuts off both of them straight away, which is pretty big. So here, I think I want to apply as much pressure as possible. Again, the onus is on us to close the game out here, I think. We're definitely playing the tempo role in this situation. So I'm just trying to think what creature I want to buff here. I think I'm going to target the Esper Sentinel, just because maybe it's correct to buff the Rafine, though. I'm not 100% sure on that one. So here, I'm gonna discard. This is a tricky one. I kind of want to discard 2 non-lands to make it a 5/5, and then we can give it protection from colorless with the Giver. Like, I'm definitely going to play Peacekeeper main phase 2. I'm just trying to debate whether I want to keep the Evangel or not here. I feel like we kind of have to discard 2. This is a tricky spot. I'm going to keep the Evangel here. They can potentially, block, but I feel like we can just give the Esper Sentinel protection from green here, which trades with the Old Growth Troll, and then we get to keep this Guardian Evangel to try and force through lethal next turn if possible. So now the opponent gets the Old Growth Troll on one of their forests, but now we can Peacekeeper on Storm the Festival, which should hopefully shut them off, right? So they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mana right here. So even if they draw land off the top, this Anointed Peacekeeper is going to shut them off casting either of the Storm the Festivals here. And we've got Evangel to be able to tap down any creatures that they play as well. So I think we should be good here, right? They're also forced to attack with the Juggernaut, so yeah. Should be good to close it down. That Peacekeeper was a nice draw, but we would have also got some loots to find a similar effect off the Rafine attack anyway, so... Now we can just Evangel, tap down the Elf, and attack him for lethal. So yeah, definitely forced into the tempo role in this matchup, but especially post-sideboard, we have a lot of good tools here as well. We got Lavinia and Archon, which are both really good. I also like bringing a couple of Pithing Needles here as well. In terms of stuff to cut, I think Rona's a little bit too slow. I think Esper Sentinel, while it does have some applications, isn't that great in this matchup. And this is a matchup where I have been very close to wanting to swap... cut down for Fragment Reality. I'm also going to trim a couple of Pippin for Thalia's. I do think Pippin giving protection from creatures is relevant, so I'm still not 100% sure which of the two is better, but Thalia being able to delay Khan, being able to delay Kiora, being able to tax Storm the Festival does seem pretty good. But yeah, as I mentioned, I have been seriously considering swapping out these cut downs for Fragment Realities, because Fatal Push is very nice here to be able to kill, Elvish Mystic Llanowar Delighted Halfling, but okay, I think this hand's a little bit too slow. We need, again, we're kind of playing the tempo role in this matchup. This looks pretty reasonable. Not the best, but I think we can definitely keep this on a 6. But yeah, Fragment Reality is really nice for starts like this where the opponent has Utopia Sprawl, right? If we had Fatal Push in hand, it would be kind of awkward against the Sprawl. The main reason I've kept with Cut Down is I think it's just generally better against Wizards, which has been very popular because having to use Fragment Reality to kill their 2-drops, which gives them like a Symmetry Sage or a Soulscar Mage, isn't really ideal, but I think Fragment Reality is still good against Wizards, but is also really, really good against Devotion, right? It really does improve the matchup, so I am definitely considering making that swap going forwards. But yeah, I mean, this hand is a little bit slow, but I think, as long as the opponent doesn't have a crazy start here, being able to get Peacekeeper or Needle down should hopefully, tax their top end quite a bit. So we could go for Needle here, naming Khan potentially, to stop them taxing something. But again, I think, we either need to strip their hand and leave them top decking, or just go for tempo. And I kind of like getting Evangel down here because if they do have Khan, we have a way that we can attack it down, right? Even if they go Khan minus, we can use Giver to give Sigardian Evangel protection from green, and then attack down the Khan, even if they have creatures in play. Wow, they have the Nykthos, so that's kind of annoying. Just gotta hope they don't have anything crazy here. So they can play Cavalier this turn, potentially. Okay, Wolf Willowhaven into nothing. Okay, perfect. So now we can hopefully Peacekeeper whatever their top end card is here. Rafina's a nice draw, but I think we just have to Peacekeeper. Oh, wow, okay, they just got Besage, so they're already left at the mercy of the top of their deck here. So, interesting what we want to name here. I mean, we could name Polychronos that it's already in play to stop them activating it, but we can just give our creatures protection from green to stop them gaining life anyway. I think I'm just going to try and name their most high impact card. I think, hold on, let's just see how much mana they've got. Okay, they already have enough mana to pay the tax on Storm the Festival, so maybe that's not the best. I think I'm just going to pick Khan here then, because not only does the Anointed Peacekeeper tax their ability to cast the Khan, it also means they have to pay 2 to activate it as well, so in these sorts of spots where the opponent is empty-handed or doesn't have anything that crazy, it's generally best to just name the most relevant activated ability or relevant top deck that they could find. So they do transform the Polychronos, but yeah, they really shouldn't be attacking here because we can just block with the Peacekeeper, give it protection from green from Giver, and then not only does the Peacekeeper survive, but it also denies them the lifelink off the Polychronos. They definitely should have just left that back. The other downside for the opponent of activating the Polychronos is that it reduces the amount of devotion. They have quite a lot, so now we can potentially name Storm the Festival off this second Peacekeeper here. Interesting. Okay, now that they're essentially empty-handed, I feel like if they drew anything relevant, they would have cast it instead of activating Polychronos. I don't think there's any massive rush to get the second Peacekeeper in play, so I'm just going to start using the Rafine here to loot away stuff and grow our board to start forcing through extra damage here. Again, definitely going to save the Giver to prevent the Polychronos from gaining them any life, but yeah, I feel pretty good about this spot now. Obviously, the opponent could still top deck well, but that's kind of always the game plan against Devotion. you know, you just got to hope they don't draw well once they have access to their mana. So they do attack again. I guess they hope that we just misplay here somehow, but we can just give our Anointed Peacekeeper protection from green, deny them the life gain, and then unless they've drawn something crazy here, we should just be good to win, I think. Okay, another mana dork. That's not really going to do anything here. Okay, do they have a Cavalier maybe? That would be a bit annoying. I mean, we can still give protection from green. I think we're still good because, right, we can give our Peacekeeper protection from green and buff it with the Rafine. Yeah, okay. Opponent just scoops it up, so we got there. Nice. Okay, so on the play here, and okay, they're on Gigantha, so I think I played this play quite recently, and I think they're on Wizards, so, I mean, this hand is just generally good anyway, but specifically against Wizards, if that is what they are on, having 2 copies of Fatal Push here is really solid. Okay, yeah, looks like they are. So definitely just going to run out the Juggernaut Peddler here, which is really huge to get out on the play, because if they have just like 1 2-drop creature, peddling away their creature is going to be absolutely huge here, and I think I will prioritize taking a creature here. Oh, they do. They just have 1 creature. Okay, perfect. So that's really going to slow down their hand and their ability to apply pressure here. Obviously, we are going to slow down a little bit if we don't find the 3rd land on curve. But if we do, we have both Diviner and Rafine here. Even if we do miss our land drop there, we've still got Pippin. We've still got Fatal Push if they do find a creature. Okay, so they found a Balmor off the top. We do find our 3rd land, so I think I'm definitely going to prioritise taking out the Fatal Push here, especially when they've got a Flame of Anora in hand that we know about, right? If we let it survive, they can kill our creature and draw too, so even though I would like to get Rafine or Diviner down, I think taking out their creature as a priority is definitely the way to go here. And now we've got, you know, Pippin in play, which is going to be really difficult for them to deal with because of the Ward 2, and then we can use the Pippin to protect our stuff like Rafine and Diviner as well. And we have another Fatal Push here, so I really like our position so far. Opponent is now just going to be digging for creatures at this point, I think. Okay, they do find a Strangle, so that can take out the Peddler, but because of the Ward 1, Pippin gets to survive here, which is pretty huge. Peddler's an interesting draw. I think I'm just going to run out the Peddler again here, right? If they found another creature, I want to be able to take that out. If not, we can try and get rid of their other stuff that they're holding on to. Okay, perfect. Take out the Arcanist. So yeah, in general in this matchup, I found it's just best to kill their creatures immediately, even if it means that you don't get to play your most impactful stuff on curve, and Peddler as early as possible as well, just to try and get rid of their creatures, because their deck is an aggro deck, but it's a synergy aggro deck, right? They need a combination of both creatures and spells to be able to do their thing, so getting Peddler down early, even if they have a creature in play, just being able to get rid of stuff like Expressive Iteration or Flame of Anor is really, really big. So yeah, again, even though we haven't been able to cast Rafine or Diviner, which are our main proactive threats, we've denied the opponent being able to play any creatures at all this game outside of that Balmor, which is pretty huge. Okay, so they do run out of Juggernaut, but that's completely fine, right? We have a lot of ways to beat the Juggernaut. Rafine is very good at buffing our creatures so that we can trade with the Juggernaut, right? We can just attack with the Peddler here, turn it into a 3/3. Just debating whether I want to attack with both creatures. I really don't think I want to just throw away the Pippin here. So I think I'm just going to attack with the Peddler here, buff it into a 3/3. Oh, interesting. Evangel's pretty nice, but I think without the 4th land, I think I do value the Diviner a little bit more in this situation because I don't have the 4th land quite yet. Okay, interesting. They choose not to block, which is kind of a surprise. So maybe they're trying to take out the Peddler here, maybe? Because we can just block, give the Peddler protection from creatures. Maybe they'll kill the Peddler in response here, but I feel like they probably should have done that last turn if they were going to do it. I guess they need to make us burn the Pippin protection here, right? So that does make sense a little bit, but they're still really behind in that exchange, right? Yeah, opponent just scoops it up. So yeah, Peddler's put in work that game for sure. So sideboarding here, cut down is just the nuts, right? We really want as much 1-mana interaction as possible. Thalia is also really good here. Rona isn't that good. Rona's a little bit slow. Oh wait, I keep having this bug with the sideboard where it selects the card above. It's pretty annoying. And then Peacekeeper also not that great here, I don't think. It's a little bit too slow. And then Evangel also not the best. I mean, I think it's fine, but I think Archon is generally much better in this matchup. So going to cut the Evangels for Archons as well. Archon might not seem like it's the best, but it is really, really solid in this matchup because they need to chain spells together to be able to do stuff. You know, if they go Iteration into something, they can only cast one of them. If they haven't played a creature, they can't cast a non-creature spell. So this hand is a little bit of a sketchy keep because we don't have any black mana, but with a turn 1 Sentinel and a potential turn 3 Archon, I think it's a fine keep. Okay, now we found a Pippin to play on turn 2 as well, so Obviously, we would love to run black man. Oh, sorry, we would love to find a black land off the top, but it's not the absolute end of the world if we don't find it immediately. And I think getting Sentinel down on turn 1 is either going to cause us to draw cards, or is going to slow down the opponent's ability to develop as well, which I think is pretty nice. Okay, sweet. We immediately found black land off the top, so I think I'm just going to cut down now. Although, actually, wait, no, that's potentially a misplay. Oh, wow, okay. I just acted way too quickly there. If they had a burn spell there, they could buff the Symmetry Sage in response. So I think I'm supposed to wait for them to cast a non-creature spell there. I mean, having said that, even if they did have a burn spell, we get to draw a card off the Sentinel, but I think taking out the Symmetry Sage is much more important. So that was definitely a misplay on my part. I should have played slower there, I think. So here, definitely going to lead by attacking with the Sentinel. Oh, wow, okay, Snapcaster Mage. Interesting, so maybe it was better for me to cast the extra Sentinel first, because my plan here is definitely go Sentinel into Peddler, but I guess this way they use the Consider first here, so that we get, we have perfect information off the Juggernaut Peddler now, so there are some slight upsides, but I think I did, had I thought about Snapcaster Mage, I probably should have cast the Esper Sentinel pre-combat, and then I don't know if I'd have attacked with the first Sentinel that they traded with in combat. Either way, I think we're still in a fine position, right? They've left with just Iteration here. Okay, they do have Juggernaut, but again, we've got the Raffine here, so we can just do that play we did last game where we just cast the Raffine and just attack with the Juggernaut Peddler here, turn it into a 3/3. We do have to discard a non-land in order to do that, but I think that's fine. Okay, found another Raffine, so happy to just discard that. Yeah, now opponent makes the trade, which I think makes a lot of sense. And now we've got the Archon here as a backup, which I think is really solid in this position where the opponent is having to dig towards a creature, right? Unless they happen to draw a creature off the top, their hand is basically just Iteration and lands from what we saw with the Peddler. Okay, they did find an Arcanist. Wow, and a Balmor, so pretty good draws from the opponent, but we've still got a pretty good follow-up here. I think I'm kind of tempted to just attack with both here, buff the Sentinel to a 3/3, which makes it really difficult for them to play around. So I'm definitely going to discard the Raffine here, just debating whether I want to discard the Pippin or not. I think it's worth it, right? Because we're pretty much guaranteed to get a card off this Sentinel, especially if we cast the Archon here, right? Because now with the Iteration in hand, they're not only going to have to pay 3 for the Sentinel tax, but they also can't play anything else this turn at all, right? If they cast the Expressive Iteration, they can't flash anything back off the Arcanist because of the Archon of Emeria. Any of their lands that they play, unless they're basics, are going to be entering tapped here as well. So we're really taxing the opponent's ability to commit here, right? Especially with Balmor in play, that really, wants them to be casting multiple spells in a turn. So this situation kind of highlights why Archon is good in this matchup, or at least I think it is. It's felt really good from my experience. So yeah, if the opponent does Iteration, they have to pay 3, which takes them a damage off the Fiery Islet, and then that's the last spell that they can cast. They don't really have good attacks here either. So yeah, I feel pretty solid about this spot. Obviously, we are out of gas a little bit ourselves, but we have the Raffine in play, which is going to be really difficult for them to play around. Now they've tapped out; they don't have anything that they can play during their turn either. So yeah, I feel really good about this spot for sure. Yeah, they found another land, but they're going to have to play it tapped because of the Archon. Wow, and we found a Thalia, so that's really solid. So here, I think I'm definitely going to buff the Archon, because if I can just discard one... Oh, wow, okay. I was going to say, if I can just discard one non-land, we can put it out of range of Wizard's Lightning, but now we can discard 3 non-lands. It's now out of range of Flame of Anora as well. So we put them down to 3, and now we can Juggernaut Peddler to try and take whatever their last card is, or whatever impactful cards they got going on there. Wizard's Lightning, Soulscar Mage. Even though we've got an Esper Sentinel in play, I'm going to take the Wizard's Lightning, because Soulscar Mage is basically going to be doing nothing here at this point. So yeah, I feel really solid about this spot now. They can't kill Archon of Emeria with any of their burn spells. We have a Sentinel on 3. They can only cast 1 spell this turn. And we're at 14 still, so we don't have to worry about Den of the Bugbear or anything like that. Oh no, they have Otawara. Okay, I think we're still in a decent spot though. We can just recast the Archon. Oh, you're kidding me. Wait, they top decked a Reckless Charge as well. Oh no. Oh no. So now, do they have Lethal here? Right, they can Reckless Charge again. They get another Balmor buff. Wow, I think they have Lethal. Okay, that was pretty unfortunate, right? Otawara is typically a one-of. We didn't see it off the Peddler because it doesn't reveal their lands. And they needed to top deck a Reckless Charge for that Lethal as well. So I think that was just a you know, it's impossible to play around. Right? I don't think you can afford to play around the Otawara in that spot. I still think even with Otawara, it's better to buff the Archon of Emeria because they have 4 Wizard's Lightning, 4 Flame of Anor, only 1 Otawara, so I think it's worth playing around that more. And I don't even think their turn is game-winning without them also finding the Reckless Charge there, right? If they don't have the Reckless Charge, if they attack, they're very vulnerable to us just, you know, attacking on the backswing, and with Rafine we can buff our board as well, so I'm going to watch that back, see if there's any other different plays, but I think that was just a really unfortunate sequence of draws from our point of view, right? Because like I said, if they don't find that Reckless Charge, I don't think they win, even with the Otawara there. So yeah, that kind of sucked. We probably would have taken... Actually, I'm not even sure I would have taken the Reckless Charge with the Peddler if they had it that turn. So go to game 3. Having to go down to 6 is a bit annoying, but this hand's pretty good, right? We've got Sentinel into Thalia or Juggernaut Peddler, which is really solid in this matchup. And we've got Archon if we can find the third land. So, yeah, a little bit tilting to lose that last one because I feel like they needed that exact sequence to stand a chance. But still feel like I like this hand in the matchup in game 3. Just got to hope we find the third land. Even if we don't know, we've got Peddler. Wow, they kept a 1-lander when we had Thalia Sentinel. Okay, that's obviously very good for us. So now we can Peddler... If they didn't have 2 considers, I'd definitely take that, I think. But I think we'll take the Belmore here for sure, especially because that's the only card in their hand that we're not taxing massively with the Sentinel Thalia here. Get him for 2. So see if the opponent finds a land. Okay, they don't find a land, but they do find Symmetry Sage, which is obviously a good draw for them. Okay, so I'm definitely going to be playing the Archon this turn. You know, well, I mean, we're already taxing them a lot, but that, you know, means that if they do find a non-basic land, it'll be entering tapped. So definitely going to run out the Archon here. That Symmetry Sage is a little bit annoying because it does slow down our clock quite a lot. 3 toughness is very relevant here. Okay, they do find another land off the top, but it is obviously going to be entering tapped because of the Archon. So here I think we just got to attack, right? They can obviously just block one of our creatures with the Symmetry Sage, but we're getting in for a decent amount of damage, and we can get the Giver of Runes down here to start protecting our creatures. I think I'm going to hold on to the land just in case we find a Connive card, but maybe it's better to just run it out, especially because we have the Esper Sentinel, right? We are potentially going to be drawing cards here off the Sentinel, so maybe it was correct to run out the Hallowed Fountain there. I hope we don't get punished for that. I think that probably was a slight misplay. So now they have Strangle on the Thalia. We do get to draw a card off the Sentinel here. Okay, we do find a Diviner, so maybe holding on to that land might be good, but we'll have to see. So I definitely think I want to get out the second Thalia. There's still, you know, taxed quite a lot here. And then we can get in with the Archon and the Peddler still. Again, this Symmetry Sage is really soaking up a lot of damage, which is pretty annoying. Does give the opponent more of a chance to draw out of this. Just got to hope they don't keep drawing lands, though. Another Symmetry Sage is a pretty good draw from them, though, but they still can't really do much here, right? If they consider, then we get to draw. But the annoying thing here is that they can cast Consider during our turn, which turns their Symmetry Sages into a 3-3. So now we don't really have good attacks anymore, which is pretty annoying. So I think I'm going to lead on Diviner, see what we draw here. Ideally, I'd like to draw a non-land that isn't cut down. Okay, we did, so we can discard that, turn the Diviner into a 3-4, which is pretty nice, and then I think we're just going to have to pass and cut down during their turn. The annoying thing is that they can obviously use Consider in response to buff their creatures out of cut down range. Or they can't do that with the Soul Skull Mage, but I really want to be taking out the Symmetry Sages as a priority here if possible. Okay, they choose not to use Consider, I guess because that would draw us a card off the Esper Sentinel. But yeah, we're really taxing their ability to develop here, but these 0-3s are really soaking up a lot of damage. Okay, there's the Steam Vent, so again, we can't really use cut down here, because they can obviously just use Consider in response. They go for Consider now. I mean, we'd obviously love to use cut down here, but we can't because of our own Archon, which is a bit annoying, but I still think it's fine. Getting another Sentinel in play is going to make it really difficult for them to develop again here, right? Okay, they top one. That's not the best to see, obviously. And I think I'm still going to hold on to this land just to loot away, potentially. And I think I'm fine attacking with a Diviner here, right? I would very happily trade Diviner for one of those Symmetry Sages here if they do choose to block. Wow, okay, they block with all three. Definitely happy to trade a Symmetry Sage with the Diviner here, right? Clear their board a little bit more so that, first of all, they can't get a sequence of draws where they can just attack us back like they did last game. And second of all, so that we can attack with more creatures without them soaking up as much damage, right? Getting rid of a Symmetry Sage is a pretty big deal here, I think. But yeah, opponent's still massively taxed here, right? We got Thalia, 2 Sentinels, and an Archon. Wow, okay, opponent goes for Juggernaut, so now we can cleanly resolve this cut down, which is huge. Right, we can take out the Symmetry Sage. They can't cost anything in response because of the Thalia here. Okay, Diviner's a nice draw here. Definitely going to run that out first just to see what we hit. Maybe that will inform what we do. Okay, don't hit anything great. But we do get to thin the deck slightly of lands. Maybe turn one of these lands into a channel land would be pretty nice, right? But yeah, again, we could attack with more stuff, but I think we're fine just attacking with the Archon here, and then, you know, we can potentially just chump block with the Juggernaut because they're forced to attack with it, and then they're just left with the Soulscar Mage back. I don't think it's worth trading with the Juggernaut here. Actually, I'm going to let the damage through. I think we can go down to 9 while we have an Archon in play. I was thinking of chumping with a Sentinel, but I don't think we have to yet. Okay, opponent goes for Arcanist, so that is a little bit annoying, but again, with Archon and Thalia, I don't think that's doing that much work here, to be honest. Again, the annoying thing here is that they can buff their Soulscar Mage at instant speed by using Consider here, but that will draw us cards off the Sentinel, so I'm just trying to think if we attack him with everything here, whether we have lethal. I don't think we do, unfortunately. So I'm definitely going to be attacking with the Archon, and I mean, honestly, I'm not too unhappy if they do use Consider here, because not only do they have to use the Fiery Islet, which puts them down to 6, but it will also draw us a card off the Sentinel, and we haven't found anything playable to use this turn, you know, to cast our 1 spell per turn because of Archon. So yeah, they do use Consider, which we will lose the Juggernaut Peddler here, but they have to pay, well, we either draw 2 or they have to lose a life here, which I think I'm pretty happy about. Okay, another Archon, that's sick. That provides us basically just good insurance at this point. Okay, so puts them down to 4, get a second Archon in play, which is really huge here. Now the opponent's in real trouble. So the question I've got to ask myself here is whether I want to block this Juggernaut or not. I don't think I want to trade with the Juggernaut. We can just chump block with a Sentinel. The risk of not blocking with the Esper Sentinel here is that we're dead to 2 Wizard's Lightnings, which they can, you know, they use a Wizard's Lightning during their turn, then a Wizard's Lightning during our turn, which could kill us. So I think, I don't know, that is a very, like, specific sequence of cards that they would need, but, you know, especially after last game, and considering we are so far ahead in this spot because we have 2 Archons, Thalia, and we're taxing what they're doing so much, I think we should play around their, like, very high variance draws here, right? I think we still win if we just chump with a Sentinel here. And you know, it would be so bad if they did just have 2 Wizard's Lightnings here. So I'm just going to block to be safe. And I still don't think there's any sequence of cards they could have that would save themselves from a lethal attack here, right? We've still got Giver of Runes to protect from interaction as well. So even losing a Sentinel here, I think we should still be good to go for lethal next turn, right? They're dead on board in a number of ways, right? Even just attacking with the 2 Archons, you know, they can only cast 1 removal spell during our turn, and we can use Giver to protect it. So I think it's just best to block with the Sentinel there and play around 2 Wizard's Lightnings for lethal. But yeah, as you can see, like, Archon has just been an MVP. Obviously, Thalia and Esper Sentinel have been absolutely great this game as well, but, you know, Archon, especially Giver of Runes as well, has probably made the opponent, their thought of using removal really difficult. Yeah, opponent just scoops it up. So yeah, taxing cards got there. That felt really good. Oh, okay, we're against Kapala. So I know they've been playing a lot of Yawgmoth recently. Don't want to make too many decisions in case they're not on that, but we'll have to see. Okay. I mean, especially against Yawgmoth, this hand isn't very good. So I think I'm going to have to mulligan it, unfortunately. Yikes. So we don't have any white mana, nothing in our hand is castable, so I'm going to have to go down to fire, which isn't a great start. I mean, to be fair, Diviner and Rafine are good ways to recover from a mull to 5, but it's still pretty... I don't really know what I want to put back here. Peacekeeper is really good against specifically Yawgmoth, but again, they could be playing something else, so I don't want to make too many decisions based on that. I think I'm going to put back Peacekeeper and Rafine. Maybe I should put back a land here instead. right? Because we're already starting from behind, so for us to have a good chance here, maybe we have to put back a land and hope to spike one off the top. But I don't know. Since I'm going to make a bit of a risk here that they are on Yawgmoth, and Peacekeeper is going to hopefully buy us some time. But maybe Diviner is like the best card to get us out of a multi-5, so not 100% sure. Okay, so they are definitely on Yawgmoth then, which is good to know. And we did draw a land off the top, so I definitely regret putting back that Diviner now. Had I known that land was on top, I definitely would have, you know, put back one of the lands and had a Diviner plus a Peacekeeper here. But, you know, the flip side of that is if we miss our third land drop, then we're in real trouble, right? The way to recover from starting off with fewer resources is have enough lands to be able to cast whatever you draw off the top. Having to mulligan and then getting stuck on lands is really rough. So definitely going to attack in here. You know, we'd definitely take the trade with either, well, with the Peacekeeper if they offer it, and then we can just slam the Peacekeeper here. Interesting. So they've got, I mean, typically Yawgmoth is a very good thing to name here, but since they've got Tyvar, I think I'm definitely going to name that, because that will not only tax the Tyvar, their ability to cast it, but it will also tax their ability to activate it. And especially with the Soul Cauldron here, I definitely want to tax the Tyvar, because their main way to pull ahead here is get Tyvar down, minus into a Yawgmoth, get a Yawg into the graveyard, and then use the Soul Cauldron to give Yawgmoth's ability to one of their other creatures. So delaying their ability to do that off this Peacekeeper is definitely the priority. So definitely think it's good to tax the Tyvar here for sure. Really hope we don't draw any more lands here. Oh, wow. Shouldn't have jinxed it. I mean, at least we have Otawara, right? But yeah, we're not in a very good spot. Having to mull and then flooding out is a little bit rough. But we still, I mean, the good thing about this list is we do have ways to recover from this in Diviner and Rafine. So, and the other thing is their deck doesn't really do all that much until they find the Yawgmoth. And Peacekeeper is really shutting down, well, it's slowing down their ability to find it. So just going to ship it back here. If they find a land, they can cast the Tyvar, but they can't activate it. And we can still bounce it with the Otawara as well, which is pretty nice. Okay, so they find a land, but it's a tap land. They also didn't have any black mana, I didn't realise until now. Obviously, they've got the treasure here, but they can still play... Oh, wow, they got the Elvish Mystic, of course, so they can cast the Tyvar this turn. But they can't activate it, which is pretty big, so I think we're just going to use the Otawara to bounce the Tyvar, and now they'd need... I guess they can just recast it again next turn, but we just need to delay their ability to get Yawg in the graveyard. Wow, another land. Okay, this is pretty rough. I mean, again, we can still just delay them, hopefully find a Diviner or a Fiend to loot away some of these lands. Because again, you know, as long as we can keep them off the combo, their deck doesn't really do anything until they hit a Yawgmoth or like an Elven Chorus or something like that. So I think I'm just going to play one of these lands and hold one of them to loot away. Even if we draw a Rafine, you know, I think it's useful to get these lands in play, because the other thing is if we draw an Evangel, if we draw a Sigardian Evangel, we want to have access to the 6th land to be able to get an extra copy in play here. Okay, they do find another land, so I presume they're probably going to recast the Tyvar here, maybe? Well, maybe, I don't know, yeah, they probably want to get it in play so they can minus next turn, right? So just got to hope they don't hit a Yawgmoth off the minus. Did draw our game plan. Oh, wow, we did draw the Evangel, so very glad that I played that land last turn. So, definitely going to use the Evangel here, and I think... I mean, we could apply pressure, but I think, you know, we don't want to give them multiple Tyvar activations, so I think I'm just going to play all 3 out, tap down their creatures here, and then probably attack the Tyvar here. I'm just trying to think whether I want to give them the option to trade with the Innkeeper or not. Probably not, right? I'd rather keep all my creatures around. Then when attack with the Tyvar, obviously they can just block with both the plant tokens here to keep it around, which I presume they're going to have to do with their current hand. So obviously Evangel was a very good draw here, but I think we're in a pretty good spot here as long as they don't draw a Yawgmoth or mill a Yawgmoth off the -2 here. They will have to pay 2 to activate the Tyvar here, which attacks them again. But even though we multi-5 and we flooded out quite a lot, Evangel could save us here. Oh no, there's the Yawgmoth. And they hit a Hepatra as well. Okay, that's super rough. So now they can go Cauldron, exile the Yawgmoth, and yeah, I don't think there's any way we can recover from this. Right, because they already have the Innkeeper in play, and they have Hepatra as well. And they've got, oh yeah, they've got Blood Artist as well, right? Yeah, okay, we're just going to scoop it up. So that was a little bit rough. I mean, we did still have a reasonable shot, even on a multi 5 there, which is a good sign. And post-sideboard, I do think things become a lot better for us, right? We can get the needles in, which in conjunction with Peacekeeper is really good at keeping them off the combo. And then I don't think we really want anything else here, to be honest. I think Sentinels aren't amazing, really. They're only really going to draw us cards off the Cauldron. I guess they're running Tyvar as well. And I think I saw they were running Elven Chorus recently as well. So I still think Esper Sentinel isn't the worst against this specific build, but still one of the weaker cards in the deck, right? There are plenty of draws where Sentinel's not really going to be doing much. So I'm just going to replace 3 Sentinels with 3 Needles and run it back here. But yeah, hopefully we don't mull down to a 5 again. And I do think the deck has good tools to fight this matchup, right? We got 4 Peacekeeper, which is really good at keeping them off comboing. We got the Pithing Needles as well. Peddler is really good in this matchup as well, because the thing is with the Yawgmoth deck, if they don't have Chorus or they don't have Yawgmoth, then they're just running a bunch of small creatures. I mean, obviously, their build, if they are running Chorus, also has Tyvar and Cauldron as well, which is another angle of attack a little bit. But, you know, Peddler getting rid of Chord of Calling, getting rid of Yawgmoth, Peacekeeper delaying the Yawgmoth and stopping them activating it, does oftentimes leave them stranded with a bunch of small creatures, and then that's the sort of situation we're after. Then we can start, you know, forcing damage through from that point. Yikes, no black mana, so we have to mull that one, I think. Okay, this one's not the best, but I think we have to keep this on a mull to 6, right? We got Needle on 1. Rona can also help fix our hand a little bit as well, and then, you know, Pippin's also good at protecting our creatures and forcing damage through as well, so definitely lead on the Needle. I mean, Needle is slightly worse against well, okay, can't type G for some reason, but yeah, Needle is definitely worse against Cauldron builds, because they can obviously give Yawgmoth's ability to another creature, but, you know, they need to have Cauldron and get Yawgmoth into the graveyard for them to play around that, so hopefully Needle will slow them down a decent amount. And yeah, if we don't have, you know, obviously Peddler can get rid of Yawgmoth, but if we don't have Needle or Peacekeeper down, then just hardcasting Yawgmoth on turn 3 or 4 can just pick apart our board. So having access to Needle here is pretty huge, I think. Interesting. Okay, so Evangel, I don't really want to play. I mean, we could play Evangel and discard the Conjured copy to the Rona, but I think I would rather try and hold the Evangel to find another land potentially. I think I'm just going to run out the Pippin and the Giver here, and we do get a free loot off the Rona because Pippin's legendary, obviously. Interesting. Okay, maybe I shouldn't have shocked the land just in case. I think I'm just going to discard the Evangel here because, you know, we do kind of want the 4th land for a number of cards like other Evangels, and Takenuma is actually pretty nice here with 2 legendary creatures in play. We can always just channel it to get back the Evangel, and I think, like I said, having access to the 4th land is going to be useful here. Maybe it's better to keep the Evangel, but Evangel isn't really that great without the 4th land, so I'm happy to discard it here, and we still have another loot off the Rona before the opponent's next turn as well. Okay, they do have the Soul Cauldron, but again, it's not the easiest for them to get Yawgmoth into the graveyard without Tyvar here. So we get another loot off the Rona. Okay, definitely going to pitch the Godless Shrine here, because Takenuma definitely has more value as a utility land to us right now. Peddler's really nice here. So we'll see what they got going on here. Hopefully we can strip away a Chord of Calling or a Yawgmoth or something like that. So opponent's considering something. I don't know whether it's a Cauldron activation, or if they do have Chord of Calling, they can potentially Chord for 1 to get Haywire Might to try and kill the Pithing Needle, which would be a bit annoying, but we're forcing them to use the Chord. I mean, they probably have to use the Chord to do that anyway, considering we have a Needle in play, but even so, you know, they have to use a Chord here to get the Haywire Might, and we get whatever the best card in their hand is as well. So now they're basically left at the mercy of the top of their deck. They can obviously kill the Needle, but, you know, I still feel pretty good about this spot. Plus, they had to tap down all their creatures to use the Chord here. So definitely going to be attacking with the Pippin. Actually, wait, they can use the Cauldron here. That was maybe a misplay. Oh, yeah, that was a misplay on my part for sure. They can use Cauldron to buff the Haywire Might. Maybe they think that we've got Fatal Push or something. I mean, either way, even if they did, we can still use Giver of Runes to protect it, but that would be a bit of a waste of the Giver activation, I think. So yeah, that was a misplay on my part, but we managed to essentially bluff in 2 extra damage, so ended up working out. Definitely going to hold on to this Takenuma in case we keep drawing more lands. Again, we've got the Rona loot as well, so, you know, wanna have a card in hand just in case we find something nice off the Rona loot here. So, again, you know, they do have an answer to Haywire Might. So if they found a Yawgmoth off the top, that would be kind of rough. Okay, no, that's fine. They just ran out the Juggernaut. That's completely fine. So they don't really have good attacks. We can just activate the Rona here, see what we find. Another Evangel. Same kind of spot as before. I don't really like the Evangel unless we have the 4th land, but Evangel we can also loot away the Conjured copy. Okay, and we found the 4th land off the top anyway, so you know, even if we didn't, we could have cast the Evangel and then looted away the extra copy off the Rona. The other thing is that Evangel is also very nice at blocking the Juggernaut here, which is pretty nice. So I'm going to tap the Cauldron to basically force them to crack the Haywire Might now. Right, presumably they want to exile the Haywire Might with the Cauldron so that in case we draw any future Pithing Needles, they can use the Haywire Might ability on their other creatures. Yeah, so they exile they exile the Haywire Might, put a +1/+1 counter on one of their creatures. Okay, they choose to put it on the plant token, which makes sense. Then we can get out the second Evangel here, tap down the Juggernaut to stop them blocking with that. And then I think we can just attack him with the 2/2s here, right? If they double block, we can just use the Giver to protect it. And we also have the Pippin activation available as well. Not going to attack with the Rona because they're just going to block it with one of the plant tokens. And we also want to use this Rona activation to discard the Evangel here as well. You know, just basically turning a card neutral effect into card advantage. Okay, Peacekeeper's pretty nice here, right? That protects us from Yawgmoth off the top, which is pretty nice. Okay, them cracking the land is a really good sign here, right? Love to see that. They also don't have a second black mana yet, so they can't actually cast Yawgmoth even if they do find it off the top, which is pretty nice for us anyway. Oh, wow, they find Tyvar, so really got to hope they don't find a Yawgmoth off this minus, like last game. Okay, they don't find a Yawgmoth. They do find Hapatra, but again, that's not really too much of a concern until they do find the Yawgmoth. So they're forced to attack with the Juggernaut here. We're obviously just going to block with the Evangel here. You know, this is one of the main reasons, you know, another good reason why Evangel is nice, because it basically just mitigates the downside of the Juggernaut. So we can trade there, don't have to worry about the Juggernaut anymore. And then we'll see what we draw. It is kind of tempting to use this Peacekeeper on Soul Cauldron, because the annoying thing is here, we do need to start applying pressure, right? The longer this game goes on, then the more chances the opponent has to find a black land, to find another black land, to find the Yawgmoth as well. And I feel with Soul Cauldron, they're kind of shutting down our ability to attack, because they can turn these 1/2s into 2/3s. They can turn that Hapatra into a 3/3. Okay, so they choose not to activate the Cauldron before the Peacekeeper resolves, which is pretty big. So again, we could name Tyvar, but they've already minused, so I don't think we really need to worry about that too much. I think I'm going to name the Agathis. I don't know. I'm kind of tempted to name Yawgmoth, but with Tyvar and Cauldron, I don't think that's that good, to be honest. So it's a tricky one, because you know, we don't really have to worry about Tyvar milling for a couple of turns at least, and even then they would have to kill their Tyvar to get the minus. They do have the second black land, so Yawgmoth off the top is a concern, but I just feel like we just can't attack if we don't name the Soul Cauldron here, and we do need to start applying pressure more, I think, right? Especially because we want to attack down the Tyvar here as well. So I think I'm going to name Soul Cauldron. Stops them turning any of their creatures into 2/3s or 3/3s, which then enable us to get in with our 2/2s here. So I think I'm just going to attack the Tyvar down with all of our creatures outside of the Giver. And now they can't activate Soul Cauldron this turn, so they don't really have great blocks here either. So, I mean, I think there's a decent chance they just let the Tyvar die here, which I think is good for us, right? The only thing we're really worried about here is Yawgmoth off the top, which they're 2 turns away from, because the black land in their hand is Blooming Marsh, which is going to enter tapped, right? And if Tyvar's dead, they can't mill over the Yawgmoth for the Soul Cauldron. If they want to activate Soul Cauldron to buff their creatures to slow down our attacks, then they have to pay 2 mana, which is, you know, shutting down their ability to do other stuff as well. Obviously, again, it's slightly risky not naming Yawgmoth with the Peacekeeper, because if they draw Cord or Yawg off the top, we're in real trouble. But I just feel in that spot we need to start applying pressure. We can't afford to play around everything. Now we found the 5th land, we can just transform Rona and start applying more pressure here. They can obviously activate the Cauldron here to turn their stuff into 2/3s and 3/3s, but at this point we have enough attackers that that's not really too much of an issue, right? At best, they can turn Hapatra into a 3/3 or one of their plants into a 2/3. And even then, you know, we've got multiple ways to protect our creatures. So now I think we just need to apply pressure, try and close the game out before the opponent has a chance to draw Yawgmoth, draw Cord off the top here. So I don't think I'm going to attack with the Pippin. I want to have access to the activation here. And the opponent's not at a low enough life total where we can afford to just start losing creatures in combat, right? If the opponent was at like 10, then I think I'd be more inclined to start attacking with the Pippin as well. But I do want to have access to more protection for our creatures here. Okay, so they choose not to... Well, I'm kind of surprised they're blocking anything with the Rona here, right? Because it has trample. So blocking with the plant token just prevents 1 damage. And loses them a body in case they do draw Yawg off the top. The other nice thing about applying pressure here is even if they do draw Yawg, they don't have a source of life gain. So that limits the amount of times they can activate the Yawg. So maybe that's a reason that I should be attacking with the Pippin here as well, just to get a bit more aggressive. Because they do have Hapatra here, right? They can potentially pick apart our board. Okay, so they do put a counter on the plant token, which is blocking the Peddler. So I think I'm just going to give the Peddler protection from green. Yeah, thinking on it, I think I probably should have attacked with the Pippin as well, because presumably they'll block the... They'll use the Cauldron on the creature that's blocking Pippin instead of Peddler, which just means that we could use the Giver Protection on the Pippin instead, and we would have got 3 for an extra 2 points of damage. So that was a misplay. I think I should have attacked with the Pippin that turn. Okay, no Yawgmoth. I feel if they had Cord, they would have done it main phase there. So again, I think we just want to apply pressure, right? Attack with the Peacekeeper, attack with the... I think we can attack with the Peddler here. I feel now it's risky to attack with the Pippin. I'm going to give the Peddler protection from green so that they can't block that. And then they're basically forced to block either the Peacekeeper or the Rona here. And we can give, if they do block the Peacekeeper with the plant token and make it a 3/4, we can just give it protection from humans with the Pippin. So again, this has been an interesting game. I think I probably should have attacked with the Pippin last turn. Maybe I'm supposed to attack with it this turn as well. I'm not 100% sure. Because like I said, if they do find Yawg, they're really limited by their life total, how many times they can activate it here. So maybe I'm supposed to just get as aggressive as possible to try and mitigate that. So yeah, maybe I was supposed to attack with Pippin both turns, gives them less options. But yeah, it's been an interesting game for sure. Okay, so they choose to block like this. I mean, we have to order so that we kill the elf first, right? Because there's no way they can defend the Elvish Mystic, but they can defend the plant token off the Cauldron here, right? So I'm just going to use the Pippin to give Peacekeeper protection from creatures so that it survives. And we also get to cast if they've got a castable card in hand. I mean, presumably it must be a land that they've got in hand or they would have cast it. So I don't think we'll get anything off the Rona here, unfortunately. But if they did hold on to something, we get to cast it for free off the Rona because it's going to take damage from combat here. So now we put them down to 2, yeah. Probably should have attacked with Pippin both turns, honestly. Oh, they had a second Cauldron. Okay, so that's why they didn't cast anything. And that's actually pretty big because now that shuts off their ability to potentially draw Tyvar and mill into a Yawgmoth. Because now, if they do mill over a Yawgmoth, we can exile it in response. Even if they draw a Yawgmoth off the top, they only have 2 life here. So I actually think we should be good either way. Yeah, okay, sweet. We got there nice. So that was pretty close. I might have misplayed a couple of times by not attacking with the Pippin. I'm going to have to watch this match back later and see what I think. Just debating whether I want cut down over Sentinel. I think on the draw I potentially do, just to slow them down, right? If they have a halfling on or a mana dork on turn 1, having cut down is probably more valuable than the Esper Sentinel, just to slow down their ability to develop. Because again, these matchups against the combo decks is all about just slowing them down, stopping them comboing, and then forcing them to just rely on their backup game plan, which is, you know, sometimes it's Elven Chorus. So maybe that's another reason why I should be running Fragment Reality over cut down. But outside of that, you know, their backup game plan is just a bunch of small creatures. So as long as we can keep Yawgmoth off the board or stop it from activating with stuff like Pithing Needle, then I think we should be pretty good in this matchup. But yeah, it's definitely a close one for sure. And hopefully, you know, we have had to mull both games as well. So if we get a solid 7, that'll be really sick going into game 3. But yeah, we'll see how we do. Okay, sweet. We have got a good 7, so we don't have to mulligan this game, which is pretty huge. Cut down and Fatal Push could be clutch here, right? Especially if the opponent does have a hand that's relying on mana dorks. Okay, perfect. So now, I think we want to prioritize cut down on the Elvish Mystic. There aren't, unlike the Samwise deck where they've got 3 drops like Waste Strider that can be killed by cut down. I think Fatal Push is generally more valuable as the game goes on because it can, in theory, kill Yawgmoth. But again, you know, I have been arguing about whether I want to swap cut down with Fragment Reality, because even though Fragment Reality does give the opponent an extra card, Fragment Reality being able to cleanly kill Yawgmoth without needing Revolt, I guess cleanly, it's not really cleanly killing it because they get another creature, but we don't have to trigger Revolt in order to kill the Yawgmoth, which is pretty huge. So getting Peddler down here is pretty nice. Okay, so they've kept a hand off pretty awkward mana here. I mean, regardless, we have to take the evolution, right? Because if they draw a green land off the top, they can just get Yawgmoth. So we just need to shut down as many avenues to Yawgmoth as possible here. Okay, they found a Young Wolf off the top. And with the Phyrexian Tower, they do have access to 3 mana here because they can sack the Young Wolf and use the Halfling here. So the pylon is still a concern here. I'm going to attack with the Peddler first just to see if they make the trade, right? I'd be very happy to trade this Peddler with a Halfling when they're stuck on mana over there. This is a tricky situation. I kind of want to use the Fatal Push on the Halfling when they're stuck on mana a bit, but I also kind of want to apply pressure here. So I think it's close between Evangel and Fatal Push, or going for Peacekeeper right now. Because Peacekeeper shutting off Pylon does enable us to apply pressure. It might start forcing blocks, but I think it's pretty close. Actually, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm supposed to go Evangel plus Fatal Push here. Kill the Halfling. I mean, if they didn't have the Phyrexian Tower, I think I would definitely kill the Halfling, but they still have access to a decent amount of mana because of the tower here, so not 100% sure. I think, actually, yeah, thinking about it, I probably should have used Push Evangel, so that was maybe a misplay. We'll have to see how it plays out. But the other thing is we can't afford to play too passively, right? We do need to, you know, they will win the game as it goes on, so the onus is on us to start applying pressure and closing the game out. But yeah, had we denied them the mana off the Halfling, that probably shuts off their options for this turn. Yeah, so had we killed the Halfling, presumably, yeah, they're going to cast 2 creatures here. So yeah, I think on balance, I probably should have just used Push Evangel here. Because now we're probably going to use Peddler on the Pylon anyway, so the Peacekeeper's not even doing anything in terms of taxing now. So even though they've already got a Young Wolf, I still think we take the Pylon here. So yeah, I think that was probably a misplay on my part, right? I should have used should have killed the Halfling last turn, denied their ability to develop a little bit more. And here, I'm kind of tempted to attack with both, but yeah, maybe I'm supposed to attack with both, but I don't really want to trade the Peacekeeper with one of their creatures. Peacekeeper is also still potentially doing something if they draw another Pylon off the top, so, but yeah, thinking about it, I definitely should have gone Evangel Fatal Push that previous turn, just to slow down their ability to develop, especially because they were stuck on lands. So here they can obviously play a Juggernaut, presumably sacking the Young Wolf, and yeah, maybe it's better to attack with the Peacekeeper, because if they do trade the Young Wolf with the Peacekeeper, then they can't really play the Juggernaut, or they'd have to sacrifice either the Hepatra or the Liberator here. So some really interesting decision points in this game. I'm not 100% sure whether I've played this one that well so far, but it's been really like close marginal calls. Okay, we found the 4th land, which is really huge with Evangel here. And we found another Peacekeeper, which is pretty huge. So I'm going to attack with our Peacekeeper here. I think they probably, they probably want to block with the Juggernaut, because otherwise we can just block with it on the backswing because it has Vigilance. So yeah, they do block. Okay, there's a Colony Garden and a Young Wolf. So yeah, they obviously don't want to be hard. I was going to say they don't want to be using their sacrificing their Hepatra or their Liberator. This was maybe a bit... Maybe I'm supposed to go for Peacekeeper here. Like, Peacekeeper shuts off Yawgmoth, but I feel like, you know, our chances of winning this game are much better if we go Evangel now and then Peacekeeper for Yawgmoth next turn. So I've just got to hope that we can fade Yawgmoth for one turn here. There is definitely maybe, I think the more disciplined players going for Peacekeeper, but I think our chances of just winning this game are much higher if we can apply a ton of pressure here. And all we've got to do is just dodge Yawgmoth or Cord for one turn. Then if we get Peacekeeper down next turn, I think we basically just lock it up. So I think as long as they don't draw Yawg or Cord here, we should be good to win. But yeah, maybe it's better to go Peacekeeper there. Not 100% sure. Oh no, they're mousing over their creatures. That looks like a Chord of Calling to me. Oh no. Oh man, that's so rough. So yeah, I think I just went too quickly on the Evangel there. If we have got, I mean, the other thing is I'm not sure how great our odds are of beating you. I mean, with Peacekeeper in play, they can obviously activate the Yawg, but they have to pay 2 mana each time and they're choked on mana, so it would really limit their ability to develop here. So I don't know, it's close. I feel like this is one of those calls where we have a better chance of winning the game if we can fade Yawg or Cord for this single turn. Yeah, I've got to scoop it up. So unfortunately that was... But I feel like if we play Peacekeeper there, we've got a good shot. I feel if they don't draw Yawg or Cord for one more turn, we should be good to win that game. But yeah, definitely some interesting points. I'm going to go back and watch this one for sure. Okay, so we're on the play here. And, I mean, I'm actually kind of tempted to keep this one because Rona can loot and Sigardian Evangel does work as a 4-drop in a lot of situations, but I don't know. This is, you know, you never really want to keep a 5-lander. I think I'm going to mull this one. It's close, though. I was tempted by that one. Okay, this one looks a lot better, right? We can put back probably the Pippin here, right? We've got Giver into Peddler into Raffine, which seems like a really nice curve. We are against the Giganta deck, though, which I imagine is probably Wizards. Oh, we're not against Wizards. Interesting. Okay, so we're against Rakdos Midrange potentially. Interesting that they're on Gigantha, so that means they're not running Shieldred, which I think is pretty good for us, right? So I'm going to play a tap land, get attacking with the Giver here. And then Giver should be good to protect the Raffine here, which is pretty nice, right? I mean, they can have a removal spell for the Giver into a removal spell for Raffine, which would be pretty rough. Okay, they do have a removal spell for the Giver. Oh, wow. And they have Shieldred's Edict. I was going to say, even if they'd go for the throat, they'd need the third land. So they apparently has a lot of removal. Going to be very rough if they have a card advantage card like, well, like something like a Crucius or a One Ring here would be really rough. Wow. Opponent has a super interaction heavy hand. Okay, Esper Sentinel's not the best draw, but it does tax, you know, if they do have the One Ring and a 4th land, we do get to draw a card here, so going to set stops just in case. I mean, it'd be interesting to see what they're running, because I feel like if they're running One Ring, they should probably be running Shieldred, and if they're more incentivized to be running Shieldred, sorry, and if they're not running, if they're running Gigantha, Fatal Push not a good draw, but yeah, I think there's a chance they might not be running the One Ring. You know, I have seen some of these journalists run Bloodbraid Elf. Oh wow, yeah. Okay, so they are on more of a conventional mid-range deck, not running like One Ring Shieldred anymore, which I think is interesting. You know, I wasn't 100% sure if the mid-range decks would continue to run One Ring Shieldred after the nerf. I still think the One Ring is a good enough card, even after the nerf, to see play. But yeah, I think these sorts of builds become more viable now for sure. So opponent has the treasure token to trigger Revolt on Fatal Push, which is pretty rough. So we can, you know, that does trigger Revolt on our Fatal Push. I think we're probably forced to take out the Jarstall here, right? Because they have a Shieldred's Edict in the graveyard. So if we don't kill the Jarstall, then they can just kill whatever creature we draw. And then if we do kill the Crucius, they can also then get back the Crucius when Jarstall hits, you know, the 3rd level of intensity. But yeah, I think we're probably in real trouble here. Yeah, especially if we keep drawing lands. Because we know they've got a 5-drop in hand, right? So it'll be interesting. Hopefully we'll get to see what the top end is. Yeah, okay. So we know they're on Minsc and Boo, Bloodbraid Elf, which is definitely good knowledge to have. I do think them not having Shieldred should mean that we have a better matchup, because Shieldred is one of the one of the best cards against our deck because it's so good against Raffine. So here, I think Thalia looks pretty good, right? Normally I only bring in a couple, but since they're running Minsk can be, maybe we want more. I don't know. It's tricky to say. I think we can afford to trim on Fatal Pushes in this against this specific build of the deck. If they were running Shielded, I think we're forced to keep in the Fatal Push. And Shielded is another card where I'm kind of tempted to make the swap from Cut Down to Fragment Reality because it can answer it immediately. But the issue is specifically against mid-range decks running Shielded that, you know, having to use Fragment Reality on a Shielded and then getting a Crucius or a Jarsil out of the deal is pretty bad for you. So, but yeah, either way, against this specific build, since we know they're not running Shielded because they've got Gigantha, I think we can afford to cut Fatal Push against them. But if the opponent was running Shielded, I think we have to keep all 4 pushes in. So this sounds pretty good. I mean, you don't want to be mulliganing against mid-range in general because, you know, just sheer resources is really important in this sort of matchup. So definitely going to keep any serviceable 7, and this is definitely a serviceable 7 to keep for sure. So they do take the Thalia, which makes sense. It means we don't have a play on turn 2, but we do have 2 Peacekeepers here, and we do get to get them down before their 3 drops. So as long as they don't have multiple 3 drops here, I think we should be in a good spot. Okay, they do have push for the Giver, so that's a bit annoying. Now they can potentially kill the Peacekeepers to, you know, potentially remove the Peacekeeper and make their cards back online again. Okay, they only have 1 3-drop, which is pretty sick. So now we can name Fable. Peacekeeper's a 3-drop, so they need to trigger Revolt in order to get Fatal Push online. So, yeah, I feel pretty good about this spot. Obviously, the opponent has a lot of good top decks here, but again, I'm attacking with the Peacekeeper here. And now with the second Peacekeeper, you know, we know their hand already. I'm just trying to debate whether it's best to try and name something off the top or just name what they've already got. I think it's probably best to just name Gigantha here. Or we could just name Fable again, right? Because once they get to 5 mana, we already know they have their 5th land, so again, the other thing is we could potentially name Bloodbraid Elf, we could potentially name Minskenby, but I think it's just much better to name what we know they've got already. So I think it's a toss-up here between whether we want to name Fable or Gigantha. And I think I'm going to name Gigantha because we've already got Fatal Push in hand to deal with the Fable token anyway. But I don't know. I don't think we really care that much. Like, we get to get the other Peacekeeper down anyway here, right? So, and if they do find a removal spell for Peacekeeper, we get to shut off Fable regardless. Because if they found like a Shieldred's Edict, they can Edict. I guess Edict's a bad example, but if they had Go for the Throat, they could potentially kill the one that has Fable to unlock that for next turn. But either way, we can get this third Peacekeeper down, name Gigantha here, and then that shuts that off as well. So opponent basically needs a good top deck here, or they're in real trouble. I think I'm going to hold on to this Dark Six Shores to discard to Diviner or Rafine if we do draw that. I don't think we need the 5th land here, really. And then we've got Fatal Push here in case they try and fire up Hive of the Eye Tyrant defensively. Okay, they found Inquisition off the top, but I mean, I think that just clears the way. Unless they're running a sweeper, we should just be applying enough pressure to win next turn, right? Puts them down to 1 here. They don't have any removal to kill our stuff. They can't block with the Hive because they tapped a mana for the Inquisition here. Yeah, okay, opponent just keeps up. So that was a weird game. Peacekeepers just, you know, cleared the way for us to kind of out-tempo them. I think I'm happy with how I sideboarded though. You know, like I said, if they were running Shielded, we want all 4 Fatal Pushes, but I don't think Fatal Push is particularly good against the rest of their creatures, really, right? You know, I guess there's potentially an argument to running Cut Down over Fatal Push against their exact list because it kills Crucius without needing Revolt. So maybe I'm supposed to make that swap. I mean, it's too late now, but Fatal Push, I mean, again, you know, Fatal Push does kill their other 3-drops like Jarsil and, you know, stuff like Bloodbraid Elf if we do trade off creatures in combat. We also don't know if they're running stuff like Bloodtithe Harvester or not. They could be running Tarmogoyf potentially. This looks like the sort of build that could be running Tarmogoyf, and Fatal Push is a lot better against Tarmogoyf than Cut Down is, so so yeah, I think I like the current configuration in this matchup anyway. But yeah, still not 100% sure whether I would prefer Fragment Reality over Fatal Push if I did have that in the sideboard. I think I probably would because taking out Shieldred straight away is really important with this list. Okay, don't like having to keep this, but I think against Thoughtseize decks, you basically want to keep any 7 that isn't awful. You know, especially a 7. I'd much rather keep a 7 with a lot of lands, because then we can just draw off the top. Esper Sentinel is a great draw here, though, because it makes their interaction really awkward. Now we can go Esper Sentinel into Thalia to tax their, you know, their interaction even further. Will be a bit annoying if they have Jarsil or Crucius here, but okay, they do have the Jarsil, which is a little bit annoying, but they don't get any value off it immediately, which is pretty nice. So I think I'm going to attack here and then use Iganjo if they block. If not, we can still use Otawara here, which is pretty nice. But I like going for Iganjo because it cleanly kills the Jarsil, and we have enough mana spare to go for the Giver as well, which again taxes their interaction even further. And then we get to hold on to this Otawara to be able to answer like a Minsk and Boo. I guess Minsk and Boo is a bad example, but I guess you could use it to bounce the token, right? And even Fable here, right? We can use Ottawara to bounce the 2/2 to enable us to attack in. Pippin's pretty good though, but I think we just want to get rid of this 2/2 because we'd want to answer it anyway, right? We can't let them keep generating treasures because that's just a way that they can play around the Thalia here. I still think I want to hold back the Giver to protect our Thalia and Sentinel from interaction though. So I feel pretty good about this spot, right? But the main issue, or the main thing I'd be worried about here is a big creature, but we know they're not running Shield Red because they're running Gigantha, so I guess the worst card for us here would be Bloodbraid Elf, but even then, if they hit a non-creature spell, it's still not bad for us. So they do have the Edict. Interesting what I want to sack here. I think probably the Giver of Runes, honestly, because the other stuff has a lot more value here, I think. And then since we can play Pippin here, we can then reduce the cost of channeling Takenuma down to 2 mana. And we could potentially use Takenuma now. I think I'm going to do that because if we don't hit anything better than the Giver, we can just cast the Giver this turn. Interesting. So we found Peacekeepers here. I think I'm just going to take the Giver now anyway. Just get another creature in play that can protect our board even more. They are going to flip this Fable into Reflection though. And the main thing I'm worried about here is Bloodtithe Harvester, right? If they can start copying Bloodtithe Harvester with Reflection, that could be annoying. And that could be another reason to keep Fatal pushing in this matchup, even in the absence of Shield Red, because that is kind of a setup that we really struggle to deal with, but not seen it so far. Okay, Rafine's a really sick draw here, so now we can just attack him with everything. Okay, opponent just scoops it up. So yeah, we got there. Nice. Hey, and we're back to rank 1. Love that.